But a friend that's visiting from France and was so excited he bought tickets to go see the Bulls.
That's awesome.
And yeah, they just fell down so hard. That's sad.
Way to really have the energy going into the segment.
On the Dallas Opera Network, you're listening to Opera Box Score.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Wherever you are, however you're listening, it's America's Talk radio show about opera. It's Opera Box Score. I'm George Cederquist, joined this week by Oliver Camacho and Weston Williams. All right, here we go. Oliver gets inside the huddle with Ian Koziara to talk about performing Fidelio for the deaf and having a darker, lower tenor voice that works well in German repertoire, but we won't say that word. Plus 2-minute drill. The Met Lucia is a flop, but director Simon Stone has already been rehired. If you're watching on TDO, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Get that full show. Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You know what to do. Also, send us a voice memo. Email us your hot takes, operaboxscore@gmail.com. You're going to get an OBS beer coaster and an OBS lapel pin just for sharing your hot take. Oliver Camacho, great to see you as always. What's on your mind?
Are we talking about sports right now, or is it not time for that yet?
Sports.
Okay.
It's sports. It's always sports time, Oliver.
And that's Weston Williams, everybody. We have no Matt Cummings and no Ashlee today, but we'll make up for them in more ways than you can even imagine.
More ways than none.
Yeah. So the 18-year-old Spanish tennis player Carlos Alcaraz has broken into the top 10. He's actually world number 9 right now. And he's on track to be a major contender in the French Open, the clay court tournament. I think he's already won 2 finals this year, and he's just like, he's the giant slayer when it comes to other players in the top 10. And
If he's a giant slayer, I really should watch out.
True. And Novak Djokovic's own tournament in Belgrade. Djokovic was in the final yesterday, but lost in 3 sets. Third set 6-0 to Andrei Rublev.
Ouch.
Yes. Sorry, Novak.
He probably had COVID.
Who knows? So
Weston Williams, what sport are you practicing these days?
I tried a new sport this weekend. I was out of town for a wedding weekend for a friend of mine. I was in the bachelor party, and we went paintballing, which is a sport that I am bad at because I move slowly, very deliberately, very precisely, very largely. And let me tell you, I had to throw away my pants afterwards because there was no saving them. But I have several bruises, but I had a good time, and I would do it again.
You can get bruises from paintball, I think.
Oh yeah, I got one right here. One right here.
Oh,
I'm not sure they're showing up on the camera. One right here. And one in other places that I can't talk about.
If you're listening to the podcast, that was really gross. Sports in Chicago, this is just not a good time right now. The Bulls are on the brink of elimination against the Milwaukee Bucks. Cubs have lost 7 of the last 10 games to go below 500. And the Blackhawks season will end on Friday because they didn't make the playoffs.
Ugh. Bad Monday, huh?
I think we shall talk some opera.
Wait, isn't game 5 of the Bulls? Is that tomorrow?
But they're
gonna lose. Yeah,
no,
they've been so lopsided. I have a friend that's visiting from France and was so excited he bought tickets to go see the Bulls.
That's awesome.
And they just fell down so hard. It's sad.
Huddle up. Let's go inside the huddle.
So, a few years ago, I heard this tenor, Ian Koziara, at the Steens Institute, the Young Artist Program at Ravinia Festival. And he's just one of those voices where it's like, oh, we're going to do that, huh? Where it's not an Italianate sound. It's not, it's not like a sunny, young, youthful tenor sound. He has that quality, and I won't say it, but like that suggests where his voice is going to go. We have a total discussion.
Very heroic sound, I think.
Well, could be. Um, but we end up deciding on what his Fach really is. But let's just say he sounds great in German music, and he's still a young guy. He just turned 30. He just won.
That's incredible, because I don't know if Ian would remember me, but he and I were at Chautauqua together, and
Drink.
it's like the guy was born at like 55, and that's a compliment.
Yeah.
He was so mature. Like all those young artists at young artist programs, man, they're all like messing around. Like Ian's just so mature.
Yeah, he's got his head on straight, and he understands his voice, which is great. And he understands what he needs to do to like just sing healthy and see what happens. I first heard you sing, I think, at as a fellow of the Ravinia Steens Music Institute, which is a program that I have a crush on. And I've heard many great singers there, like Nadine Sierra back in the day, and Misha Brugers-Gozman, and Amanda Forsyth was an artist in that program, and Samuel Hasselhorn. Oh my God, Samuel Hasselhorn.
We were there the same year, 2014.
I know. And I remember hearing you sing for the first time, and just like, I mean, this is like ostensibly a sports podcast, and so I'm going to be doing a bad metaphor here, but you have like a fast ball, or maybe I should say, like, put it in tennis terms, like you like know how to like pull the trigger on certain notes, and you just know how to add a little bit of metal into the sound, and it just becomes like very thrilling and penetrating. And it seems like you could do it in a lower part of your voice than most tenors can do it. I think tenors really enjoy, pulling the trigger, in the upper middle and above the passaggio. But you seem to be able to actually pull the trigger in a more medium low part of the voice,
Sure.
which begins to suggest a Fach that maybe you're not comfortable being considered in that Fach yet. But I think a lot of people who first hear you sing like start to get ideas like, oh, we have one of these on our hands. And so we'll just dance around that Fach, but let's just say Germanic tenor.
Sure.
Do you remember the first time somebody recognized that quality in your voice and, maybe talk to you, young man, did you know?
Yeah, I actually do. It was in an email. I had just done my undergrad auditions. So I was either 17 or 18. And the school, Lawrence University, to which I ended up attending,
in Appleton, Wisconsin?
In Appleton, Wisconsin,
okay.
with Miss Zoe Reams and I were in the same class.
Oh wow!
Fabulous singer. But I remember the coach saying, you have the makings of this sort of German tenor sound, but of course, at age 18, there's not a ton you can do about it. So it's a matter of, picking the right keys for art songs when you're studying primarily that for the first couple of years, and then being very particular about the first arias you start studying in your early 20s.
Yeah. So right now, what seems to fit you very well is Mozart. And later on, we'll hear this really great For Del Mar that you sing. And, not all of the German tenors have the ability to do the coloratura. And I think I even heard a trill in there. I was like, oh, nice, Is the coloratura something that you worked on, or is that something that just came naturally to you? Or
I wish I could say that was something, I worked on, but it just came pretty naturally.
Okay. So is Bach in the sphere of possibility for you, or is that too light, for lack of a better word?
Gosh, I love Bach. I love Handel too. It doesn't get offered that often, if I'm honest. The things that tend to get offered are, Wagner and some of the early 20th century German composers, Zemlinsky, Schreker, Berg. But I love that stuff, of course.
Well, it's not hard to figure out, like, that you've done a lot of young artist programs. And Lindemann is one that you're associated with. You did for 3 years. And there are others. Being the type of tenor that you are, do you have maybe some stories about what people thought you could do and maybe misfalked you or tried to give you stuff too early because just there's that excitement in hearing a voice like yours, you know?
Yeah. I don't have any particularly, egregious stories. One of the things I really appreciated about the Met is because the season is so long and there's so much to do. You're able to get on stage, even in relatively small capacities, in operas that just don't get done that much in the U.S. So, I got to be one of the squires in Parsifal in the absolutely incredible production the Met has of that. There were a couple of
Who was it with
scenes.
Kaufman? That one?
Oh God, no. So the original production was I was doing the remount of it, which was Klaus
Okay.
Florian Vogt,
Okay.
which is a very different flavor of German tenor from Jonas Kaufmann. But yeah, there were definitely sort of scenes or arias that we were testing out in Lindemann and figuring out, would this work well? Would this not work well? I remember I had a moment for about 6 months with a knave from Les Troyens, and that was a good stretch, but definitely a stretch. That was a real challenge to see. Okay, can my voice do this in a natural way? But it was super cool. I really enjoyed it.
Well, can you describe for maybe people who don't listen to as much opera as we do or as much singers as we do, like what you think the difference is between somebody who does German music well as opposed to somebody who has a more Italianate sound?
Yeah, I actually don't think it's that there's that much necessary difference. I think there are certain things that tend to be typical of that. But if you look at someone like Jonas Kaufmann and you look at someone like Klaus Florian Vogt, these are two people who sing tons and tons and tons of German repertoire and sing a lot of the same roles, and they're completely different colors. But I think, like, if I had to pick out one thing that I think is sort of characteristic of all the people who sing that kind of rep, it's the ability to either beef up or blade up the middle of the register over quite a big orchestra. You're expected to sing C's and D's in the middle of your range at a volume or with the cut that can make singing over quite a large orchestra possible. That happens in plenty of Italianate rep. It's just you're usually a fourth or fifth higher when you're doing it.
Where the voice has a natural brilliance to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why you tend to get a lot of people who sort of train up from baritone.
Yeah.
Which admittedly I did sing some baritone in high school.
So
doing that kind of thing.
So for those of us who don't have that ability, is it a matter of like pouring on air, or is there something you do with the resonance that gives that cut? And well, I'll let you answer the question first, then I have a follow-up question. So
yeah, I think it usually has more to do with blade than with heft, right? And I think there might be tenors who sing differently than me that go the other way, but I think usually for me it's a matter of just adding a little bit of snarl and a slightly more forward placement. Usually it's not a good idea for me to like try and artificially beef up the sound. I've done it occasionally when I'm like doing an impression of a voice. I'm thinking of the moment in Schöne there in the fifth song on Feierabend. There's a moment where the tenor can if he wants imitate the maestro.
Okay.
And I would definitely do it there as a funny thing, but usually just as a recipe for like cutting over an orchestra, it's usually a bad idea. So for me, it's more about blade.
So this idea of blade is one I think I've known, but I've never heard anybody use that term. Is that a term that somebody taught you, like like a technical, resonance placement type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there are a lot of words that I think sort of refer to roughly the same thing, whether it be blade or ping or snarl or focus. I think they're all talking about roughly the same thing. But it's this idea of a slightly more forward place with a slightly emphasizing the trebliness of the sound without removing the sort of support and dome that makes for an elegant and well-balanced operatic sound.
Right. So maybe this is what we've kind of unpacked it for the audience, or maybe you're unpacking it for me. When you put your voice in this placement, it no longer is bel canto.
Maybe.
Because then you don't have access to, quick register changes or, lots of, scaly passages, even though we're going to hear you sing For Del Mar in a minute, which sort of is contradicting that. But I think that's what it is. Like, I think people who sing this type of music don't like to move their voices fast, because putting it in this spot, it's okay to like put it in a spot, and then you can, feel how you're cutting through the orchestra, and to like go up and down very quickly. And that like is maybe, I don't know, scary or like not comfortable,
Yeah.
Then you have people like Lucia Pop who could do it, and then there goes my theory just crumbling down.
Well, no, and I think it depends on the circumstance, right? So like for example, with something like For Del Mar, yeah, it's a bigger Mozart orchestra, but I'm never under any worries of being well heard over a Mozart orchestra. I sort of can take for granted that if I'm providing a well balanced sound, particularly in some place like Wolf Trap, but really anywhere against that kind of orchestra, that I'm going to be heard fairly well. And which gives you a ton of freedom, right, to experiment with ideas. For Del Mar is a long aria, to give some real sottovoce moments and some real sort of shy, the opposite extreme.
Good call, bad call on Opera Box Score.
Good call, bad call. We're gonna wake you up or take you home or fill in your lunch break wherever you are, however you're listening to the show. It's Good Call, Bad Call. Oliver Camacho.
If you are listening to this when this comes out and you're in the Chicago area, get to the Vivica Jeannot concert this weekend with Third Coast Baroque. Should be doing like all, not world premieres, but music has not been sung for like 300 years. That's her specialty. She's performing with Ruben Dubrovsky, who is a friend of the show. He's the artistic director of Third Coast Baroque, and also just got a job as the artistic director of some opera house in Germany. I forget which one. But anyway, it's Vivica Jeannot. She's incredible. Go hear her.
Weston Williams.
Regardless of what George may think about the production, or apparently anyone who's seen it, I've been enjoying Nadine Sierra's Instagram of the production of Lucia in from the Met, and it's I was just scrolling through Instagram one day, and I just like scroll past the most horrifying amount of blood I've ever seen in a Lucia production, up close and personal, just lounging around having a good time. And there's been a whole series of that on her Instagram, and I highly recommend you check it out, because that might be the only enjoyment you get from this production, if George is to be believed.
It literally looks like Carrie, the film. Like she's
just like an absolute massacre.
It looks like a 3-year-old eating a chocolate sundae. Discovered. Speaking of 3-year-olds, my 12-year-old came to see the opera that I directed last week. It's a brilliant piece called The Falling and the Rising, music by Zach Redler, libretto by Jerry Dye. And afterwards I said, hey, so, what'd you think of the show? And he says, it was good, but it's no Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah, he got you. He got you good.
Man, it hurts. All right, that's it for this week's edition of America's Talk Radio Show about opera. Our announcer, he's Norm Woodel. NormWoodel.com. If you are watching on TDO, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Stitcher and Spotify. You get the full show by clicking follow Apple Podcasts. You just hit the plus sign. Again, send us a voice memo. Email us your hot takes, operaboxscore@gmail.com. You're going to get that merch and that swag, beer coaster, OBS lapel pin. Our creative consultant is indeed Oliver Camacho. Our audio and video editor is Weston Williams. For our guest, Ian Koziara, I'm George Cederquist, asking you to continue the conversation about opera while you focus on the performance, not on a screen. We're back with an all-new show next week, plus you're going to get more opera headlines, more hot takes, and more love for Simon Stone, who wrote this stuff. Join us.